All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. I've been coming at you with a series of video presentations for the Rankin Technical College AWD Application and Web Development 1111 .NET Framework with Web Databases class. The main textbook for our class is what's shown on the screen here, ASP.NET MVC with Entity Framework and CSS by Mr. Lee Naylor. Problem with this book is, although it's very well written, very code intensive, at times there's not a lot of explanation. So what I've decided to do first is to go over this textbook, which is Professional ASP.NET MVC5 by John Galloway of Microsoft and others. I am smack dab in the middle of Chapter 3 of the text. All right, so we are in Chapter 3, which is on views. We've gone over Chapter 1, getting started, Chapter 2, controllers, and now we're in Chapter 3, views. All right, as the author says here, down near the bottom of page 58, oftentimes a view needs to display a variety of data that doesn't map directly to a domain model. All right, so all it's saying is views can be complex. One approach to doing this is what we looked at before, taking all that data and putting it into a view bag. The problem with view bags, using the view bag, there's a couple of them. First of all, the view bag is really set up only if you're using small pieces of data. If you're handling big pieces, like if you had an array with millions of things in it, you wouldn't want to do it using a view bag because it can be resource intensive. Also, view bags do not allow IntelliSense. So if I say view bag dot something, the system won't know what I'm talking about. I won't get IntelliSense. They do show how you could put this stuff into a view bag here on page 59 on the top of the page. Yeah, it's a way that it could be done. That doesn't mean that it's the way that it should be done. But they show this here. The author says below that it gets the job done and it provides a flexible approach, but it's not something you'll want to do often. View bags, like we said, they can hold anything, so by default the system doesn't know the type of data that it's holding in or anything else. So one way that you can handle it instead of doing this is to write a custom view model class. Now remember, we talked about model, and the model is our data source, oftentimes a database, but it doesn't have to be. And the models also hold the business logic. So the models are C# classes. The view is what we want to render to the user. It's the user interface. It's typically a .cshtml file. So it's HTML code which may have Razor C# in it. And the controller, which kind of makes sure that because the model and the view don't talk directly to one another, they interface through the controller. So the author says if we had a shopping cart summary page here, you could create what's called a shopping cart view model. All right. So a view model is a model that exists to supply information for a view. So we could create this and we could make it strongly typed. At model, shopping cart, view model. As it says, this gives you the benefits of a strongly typed view, including type checking, IntelliSense, etc. that we talked about before, without requiring changes to the model class. All right. Now, I'm not going to install this. It says if we do this, it installs the samples directory to the project that contains a product model and a shopping cart view model. You can do that if you want to. All right. To do this, it says you got to run it in NuGet. So to do this, there's different ways of doing it. The easiest way is to go to View, Other Windows, go down and find Package Manager Console, and down at the bottom of your page, then you can type in that command, if that's the way that you want to do it. that's on the bottom of page 59. So I don't even know if it would take this, but I can type in install. I wasn't going to do this, but install minus package. Notice there's no space there between the hyphen and the install and the package. rocks.promvc5.views.viewModel. Now, if I get an error here, the system means it just can't find it. Oh, it did find it. All right. So that new get package added a samples directory. Did it? Let's look. Well, there it is. There's samples. And that's got a shopping cart view model, and it's got some different stuff in it. So we could now, if we wanted to, they mentioned this on the bottom of page 59, run the application again. Again, I am taking the last lecture that I did, and I am producing it, and that's what slows this down, but it's coming up. And we want to iterate here from home. Instead of home index, we're going to go to home slash shopping cart once this comes up. Okay. Well, it doesn't like that. Doesn't like that either. All right. Well, this is where there we go. So there it is. This is just some dummy data that has been put in for us. Okay? All right. Let's just stop the run, go back here, stop the run here, go back to our text. All right. In the View Basics and View Conventions sections, we learned how a controller specifies a view. But how do you create a view to begin with? The easiest way, as they mentioned in there, is to right mouse click on the name of an action method in a controller and choose Add View. All right. For this example, you can just add a new action method named Edit. So we're going to add this. So we're going to copy that. We're going to come back again to our home controller. I think they want it in the store controller. So we're going to come down to the bottom here, paste this in. There it is. So if we want to add this view, which currently does not exist, if we look in our views folder, there under store controller, there is no view, period. There's not one for edit. So if I right mouse click on here and choose Add View, that's going to allow us to do this. All right, you can see what comes up. All right. So the author says this brings up the Add View dialog that you see in Figure 3.5 that is on page 61 of the text. And it says the following listed. So let's actually show it here. All right. So this is the stuff that's in here. The first thing is the view name, which is required, and by default, the view name will be the same name as the associated controller method. All right. Second, template. After you select a type, you can choose a scaffold template. These templates are used by the Visual Studio IDE templating system to generate a view based on, all right, what it is you're trying to do here. So notice it currently says empty without model, and if I click here, it shows me the other possibles that I can use here. So what are these? The first one is create, which creates a view with a form for generating new instances of the model. The next is delete, which creates a view for deleting existing instances of a model. All right. The next one, details, creates a view that displays a label and the value of each property in the model type. 4 is edit, which generates a form view for editing existing instances of a model. You may or may not have heard of the acronym CRUD, create, read, update, and delete. Well, there's the create, there's the read, there's the update, and there's the delete. We also have empty, which creates just an empty view, and empty without model, which creates an empty view, but there is no model, so you're not required to select a model type when you select this type of, this is all referred to as scaffolding, and list, which creates a view with a table that's going to allow you to iterate through it and look through a list. All right, let's just keep that one the way it is. You'll notice that if I do come through here and I choose, for example, just empty, now this is not grayed out anymore, and I can tell it the model class that's associated with this, and I can tell it the data context class. There's only one. We also have here create a partial view, which we'll talk about later. It says that this will create a view that's not a full view. It's a view that's designed to be used with something else. You won't have any HTML tag at the top of it. There's also reference script libraries here, which indicates whether the view you're creating should include references to JavaScript files. And finally, the last thing that's on here is use a layout page. All right, and that determines whether or not the view you're creating references a layout or whether it's fully contained. In other words, everything is all encompassed inside of the view itself. All right. This dialog gets interesting when we start working with models, and we'll start doing that in detail in the next chapter. So I'm just going to cancel out of this for right now. In fact, let's leave it at empty. All right. Which is what we had right there before. Let me get rid of this. All right, we'll just leave it at edit and empty, and we'll leave everything else. So this is basically all of the defaults. And the default was empty without view model. So we'll click add. Boom, we get a new file. And now if we go and look underneath here under our store, notice there's an edit.cshtml. That's this file. All right.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a three-part presentation, because what happens next in here in the book is they start going over the Razor as we work our way down here. Starts going over the Razor view engine. Remember, the Razor part, these files are .cshtml files. The CS stands for C#, and that allows us to embed C# inside of our HTML file. So the last 10 pages or so of this chapter go over the Razor view engine. So I'm going to come back with those in just a couple minutes.